Oh boy, have we got a doozy for you today. Presence is the brand new horror film from Neon, which has been putting out a lot of bangers recently. It comes from director Steven Soderbergh and writer David Koepp. I was especially looking forward to this one for being a haunted house flick from the perspective of the ghost, or in this case, a poltergeist. I am very excited to talk all about this ambitious thriller, so let's just get right on into it. Hey everybody, I'm KillJoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. I think the initial attraction to Presence from all of the marketing that this film has done so far is the idea of flipping the tired haunted house formula on its head. If you've seen a horror movie in the last 20 years or so, you have definitely gone through this journey before. A new family moves into a house with a spirit, chaos and/or jump scares happen a bunch, the family hires an exorcist, and the spirit is vanquished. We have seen it done plenty of times, not just in the Conjuring universe. Presence presents itself as a new take on the subgenre by putting you in the driver's seat of the entity itself. This thankfully doesn't end up being a gimmick, rather a vessel to push a familiar mystery in a really fresh way. For instance, one of the many mysteries of this film is the simple question of who are we actually following here? What is this entity? A who? A what? A demon? A person in the film? Well, I don't know at the start of the movie. With that in mind, let's get into our stellar cast here. Julia Fox from Uncut Gems shows up for like a scene, which is really cool, but I wouldn't call her a main character. The Payne family, however, is the focal point of the film, with Chris Sullivan playing Chris, perfectly cast with that one, wow. Eddie Mayday as Tyler, Kalina Lang as Chloe, and Lucy Liu as Rebecca. Lucy Liu is probably the most recognizable name from the cast, and she is excellent in movies such as Kill Bill Volume 1 and Payback. I personally know her as Watson on Elementary, a show I used to watch a lot in high school. Ya boy loves a good mystery, even if it's not horror adjacent. Besides hunting down clues on what or who this entity could be, there's also the mystery of how Chloe's friend mysteriously died. The coroner says Chloe's friend Nadia died of an overdose, although there is suspicion amongst the family over what actually happened. Before I go any further with that, I think that this movie could have stopped at the idea of taking the haunted house formula, flipping it on its head, showing you a lot of the tropes just from a different perspective, literally the other side, but this movie chooses to focus on something else for the majority of the film. Presence is a family drama that we just so happen to see from the perspective of a specter, which makes it very different from something like last year's In a Violent Nature. This film isn't too concerned with messing around with tropes and subverting them. This is more about telling this kind of story through a voyeuristic lens. We get to see these very vulnerable conversations with the characters that helps us understand them better and why certain choices are made in the end. I would have been very down for a film that does to the haunted house subgenre what In a Violent Nature did to the Friday the 13th films. But this kind of isn't that. Like, sure, you're gonna get some of those tropes. There's a medium that comes into the house at one point. We'll talk about that later. This movie, however, was much more focused on the familial story, which was really unexpected and intriguing. Another thing this film executes really well is making you love or hate some of the characters here. And I mean, like, strongly hate some of them, like Ryan, who is the biggest douche nozzle of all. West Mulholland, the actor who portrays Ryan here, looks like a mix of JJ Maybank from Outer Banks and Malachi from Children of the Corn. That's how you know Ryan is a little evil with a bit of a wild side. I wanted to punch this kid in the face so many times during the runtime of this very short movie, clocking in at only 85 minutes, especially when he was showing off his washboard abs. Ugh! West, great performance here, man. I hate this character. Rebecca and Tyler also made me want to rip some faces off, but that's getting into some spoiler territory. Again, that's something I want to save for later on. The last real big spoiler-free thing I want to get into here is that if you're expecting a terrifying jump scare-filled horror movie just from a different perspective, you might be disappointed by Presence. I found myself really engaged with the story at hand, so I didn't need things like cheap jump scares or monsters hanging out on the top of dressers to keep me interested, like a lot of the movies similar to this one. If you're hoping for this film to be a really sophisticated version of something like The Conjuring, you might not really end up getting that from this flick. In terms of terror, though, the final scene of this movie brought out a lot of emotions in me. Things that made me terrified, things that made me distraught, and all of this is only so effective because they lost some of the campier elements that movies like The Conjuring, Amityville Horror, Insidious, Paranormal Activity, all those flicks have. They lost all of that and gave you one big something crazy at the end of this flick that truly made me want to crawl out of my own damn skin. I was genuinely upset leaving the theater for this one. And then I got a flat tire on my way home and I had to put on a little donut in the middle of a snowstorm. I sacrificed my life in order to make this review today, ladies and gentlemen. man. Alright, it's time to get into spoilers, so if you have not seen this flick yet, go on and check it out and then come on back. Thank you for not spoiling movies for yourself from some dork on the internet who likes to talk about horror. Please support films in the theater, especially this one, because it's good. I want to dissect the Payne family and why I think they work so well for a haunted house flick. If we look back at some of the big hitter haunted house movies from the past, like Insidious, Poltergeist, and Amityville Horror, we see a lot of families that start in a good place but deteriorate as more paranormal activity happens around them. The same goes for that series too.
Katie?
Here in Presence, the family is already divided before they even move into this new house. Sure, usually in a lot of these flicks, maybe the kids are upset that they got removed from the school they were familiar with. They don't get to see their friends anymore that they got to see every day. And while yes, that is a small factor with Chloe's character here, this movie is much more about the horrors of a parent picking a favorite child. Rebecca attaches herself to her son as they both lack empathy and are very career focused, while Chris and Chloe connect over their emotions and grief. It's a sad reality because I could totally see real people being stuck in a situation very similar to this. It makes the scenario instantly relatable and aids the emotional story, which is the focal point of this haunted house flick. A scene that examines this really well is when the entire family is hanging out in the living room as Tyler is telling his mother about a nasty prank him and his friends pulled on a girl at school. Chris occasionally chimes in with disappointment towards his son as his mother eggs him on, almost living vicariously through Tyler. Chloe sits on the other side of the couch holding a pillow as her mother turns her back to her. This is a perfect and unfortunate model for how this family operates. Chloe and Chris are often pushed away as Lucy Liu's Rebecca character typically makes a lot of the decisions, and Tyler is championed for whatever the hell he was doing just because he's successful at swimming. It's one of the many reasons why Chloe's mental state is not in a good place during this entire film, and also the same reason why Chris has to call a lawyer at one point early on in the flick to ask if he would get in trouble for illegal actions that his wife is maybe committing at work. There's a lack of trust on one side here and a level of neglect on the other that leads to a lot of the big decisions made in the third act here. Finally, talking about one of the big reveals of the film, douche nozzle Ryan, who has been dating Chloe for a majority of this flick, is secretly a Jeffrey Dahmer prodigy. He drugs people, in this case mostly women, by slipping it into their drink. He then tries to kill them by suffocation, which we almost see happen to Chloe. We learn in a very scary monologue from Ryan that he was the one to take out Nadia. He put some drugs in her drink, man. That's messed up. The spirit, watching all of this unfold, wakes up Tyler as he races upstairs. He intervenes by pushing Ryan out of Chloe's window, with both of them falling to their deaths. At this point in the film, it is very easy to think that the spirit has been Chloe's friend this entire time. I mean, nearly every sign points right to it. The spirit helps organize Chloe's books for her, it trashes Tyler's room after he told that god-awful story, and it even saved Chloe's life in the end. This movie, however, is full of twists and turns as it sets up its big reveal at the end here so well. A medium character is invited to the house and locks eyes with the spirit multiple times during the visit. She knows that some sort of presence is there, which I think Chloe actually says almost verbatim, like one point earlier on.
Here I come.
The medium explains that the spirit is anachronistic, which means it could be from a different time. In turn, meaning that this character could still be alive during the events of the film. She even comes back later to tell Chris that something is going to happen with a closed window in the house. The big reveal comes right at the end during a denouement where Lucy Liu is struggling to leave the house after the family gets ready to move again. She walks into the living room one last time to see Tyler in the mirror behind her. The spirit has been her son this entire time. My eyes widened, I had goosebumps all over my entire body, and I was sick to my stomach with sadness. This character that I hated the entire movie was silently going through a redemptive arc post-mortem. And then on top of that, to feel so bad for Lucy Liu's character, who again is maybe a criminal, maybe an awful mother, not a character that I really connected with through this entire flick, and yet here I am still finding myself so upset for her. It's heart-wrenching, harrowing, a little scary at times too, and it makes for a very unique flavor from this film. Overall, I think Presence is an excellent addition to 2025 horror, and I think it's going to be one we're still talking about at the end of the year. Hey everybody, before we wrap up today's video, please make sure to subscribe to this page for more horror movie reviews just like this. I would greatly appreciate it as we're just about to hit 30,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Thank you to everybody who supports this page in any sort of way. What did you guys think about Presence though? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching, please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all. The big reveal... Who's there? Oh God, that scared the fuck out of me. That's, dude, I swear to God, I heard like a demon. Like, I heard like, like that. I'm like, what the fuck? I recorded that too. I just jumped out of my fucking pants.